Welcome to Life Stories, where one quiet woman, humiliated in front of her entire office, dared to walk through the fire without ever raising her voice and brought down an empire with a single truth. Have you ever been underestimated so deeply that people forgot you were watching, listening, remembering? This isn't just about workplace cruelty or power games. This is about what happens when kindness is mistaken for weakness, until the moment the world discovers who you really are. Today's story is emotional, devastating, and ultimately unforgettable. Because sometimes the most dangerous person in the room isn't the one yelling. It's the one standing silently, holding everything inside, until the exact right moment to let it go. Let's step into her world and see what happens when the underestimated become unstoppable. Emily Grant didn't belong here, and everyone in the Apex Creative Group office knew it. It wasn't the way she dressed, though that was always a topic of whispered ridicule. It wasn't even the battered leather tote bag or her unfashionable flats. No, what made her different was quieter than that. A kind of stillness, a composure in a world that worshipped chaos. In a Manhattan office tower glinting with glass, marble, and teeth bared behind smiles, Emily's gentleness was seen as weakness, a flaw to be exploited. They called her grandma behind her back. Madison Blake, the reigning queen of the account floor, once joked during a client meeting that Emily's oatmeal cardigan looked like it came with a free retirement plan. The room laughed. Emily didn't. She had smiled politely, eyes on her notes, her hands trembling only slightly under the table. She wasn't here to impress anyone. She was here to work. Numbers made sense. People didn't. Still, cruelty has a scent, and sharks circle blood. Madison's clique, Chase Bennett with his practiced charm and zero empathy, Ivy Chen with her curated Instagram perfection and knack for slicing egos with hashtags, picked up the rhythm quickly. The passive-aggressive comments became snide remarks, then open mockery. The Slack messages sent accidentally to the wrong thread. The coffee spill that just happened to destroy a full week's worth of client data analysis. And yet, Emily endured. There were nights she went home to her apartment in Tribeca and cried in the shower, knees curled, water scalding. But she never cried at work. Not once. Her dignity, worn but intact, was the last thing she had in that place. Or so they thought. What they didn't know, what they couldn't even imagine, was that Emily Grant wasn't just some number-crunching introvert clinging to the bottom rung. She was married. And not to just anyone. 3 years ago, in a park lit by lanterns and laughter, Logan Pierce had dropped to one knee and asked her to marry him with a ring he designed himself. Back then, he was just Logan, bright-eyed, brilliant, with an idea that would one day become Pierce Global, one of the most powerful tech conglomerates in North America. Today, he was the Logan Pierce, billionaire, visionary, CEO, the man who made Manhattan CEOs flinch just by clearing his throat. But Emily had insisted on keeping her name, her job, her independence. No perks, no name-dropping, no favors. Logan had agreed with a smile and a shake of his head. "You're the only person I know who wants less power," he joked. Now that principle was unraveling. That Friday started like any other. A snide comment about her thrift store bag, a passive-aggressive Slack from Madison about basic presentation slides, and a hallway snicker from Chase asking if she had plans with her cats that weekend. Emily kept her expression neutral. She kept her back straight. But it was building. She could feel it, an invisible pressure behind her sternum. And when Ivy appeared at her desk holding a can of Coke, Emily should have known. "Oops," Ivy said, her tone syrupy sweet, as the soda exploded over Emily's cardigan and keyboard. Chase burst out laughing, and Madison sauntered over, phone already recording. "Guess someone needed a bath," she sneered, waving the phone like a weapon. "Say hi to the internet, Emily. Hashtag workplace wildlife." For one perfect second, the world froze. Emily stood, soda dripping from her sleeves, her hazel eyes locking with Madison's iPhone lens. Something passed behind them. Not rage, not shame, but something deeper. A quiet shift, a door opening in a place no one else could see. She reached for her bag. Her fingers were soaked and sticky, but they didn't tremble. She walked to the break room, pulled out her phone, stared at one name. Logan. She hesitated. Not because she didn't want to call, but because she did. And calling meant breaking the seal, letting him see what she'd hidden so well. He picked up on the first ring. Emily? Her voice cracked. I can't do this anymore. Where are you? At the office. I'm 10 minutes away. Don't move. The call ended. When she stepped back onto the floor, the air changed. Maybe it was in her eyes. Maybe it was something else. Madison was waiting, smug as ever. Back already? You missed your crying break. Emily sat down, opened a spreadsheet, and ignored her. That's when the elevator chimed. At first, no one looked up, but the footsteps that followed were different. Confident, sharp, deliberate. Logan Pierce stepped into the room like a storm in human form. 6'2" in charcoal gray, every movement precise. His presence didn't just command attention, it demanded it. Conversations halted. Coffee cups paused mid-sip. He didn't look around. He walked straight to Emily's desk. Emily, he said, his voice calm and dark. You ready? Her lips curved into something close to peace. Yes, just grabbing my bag. Madison blinked. Wait, you two know each other? Logan turned then, slowly. Calculated. His eyes swept the room like lasers measuring the worth of everyone present. She's my wife. Dead silence. Madison's fake tan visibly paled. Chase's jaw fell open. Ivy dropped her phone. Scott Delaney, the floor manager, stepped out of his glass office, suddenly less smug and more sweat. She's what? Madison laughed weakly. You're married to her? Seriously? Yes, Logan said. And I've been reviewing the internal activity reports for the last few weeks. The harassment, the sabotage, the videos. His voice didn't rise. It didn't have to. I own this building, this company, and I just watched you treat my wife like garbage for weeks. So here's how this ends. He pulled a folded list from his pocket. Madison Blake, Chase Bennett, Ivy Chen, Scott Delaney. You're all terminated. Security is already on their way. And before you think about lawyering up, don't. You signed NDAs, you broke code of conduct, you're done in this city. Madison stepped forward, panic blooming. You can't do this. I am doing it, Logan cut in. You underestimated the wrong woman, and now you're going to learn what that costs. Emily stood beside him. She didn't gloat. She didn't smirk. But when Madison lunged at her desk, screaming about betrayal and privilege, about pretending to be one of them, Emily just tilted her head slightly. The kind of quiet strength no cruelty could erase. Logan raised his hand. Enough. The elevator dinged again. 2 guards stepped out, silent and efficient. The screams faded. The phone stopped recording. And somewhere in the stunned silence, a truth settled over the floor like dust after a fire. They'd tried to bury her, but they didn't know she was a seed. What would you have done if you were Emily? Stayed silent or spoken out sooner? Could you forgive a world that only respects you once it knows your worth? In the next chapter, not everyone accepts the fallout, and someone from Logan's past isn't done playing games. The hallway echoed with their footsteps long after the elevator doors closed. Emily held Logan's hand, but her fingers were cold despite the warmth of his grip. They said nothing as they descended. 10, maybe 15 floors. She couldn't tell anymore. Her thoughts were a blur of disbelief and adrenaline. The office above them had been a prison, and Logan had shattered the bars with a single sentence. She's my wife. But now, standing beside him in the quiet lobby, something inside her twisted. Not relief, not quite. Something else. Something messier. Logan led her to the waiting car without a word. The driver opened the door and she slid in silently. Only when they pulled into traffic did he speak. I'm sorry it took me this long, he said. If I'd known, if you'd told me sooner. I didn't want to be the woman who calls her husband to fix things, she interrupted, her voice softer than she intended. I needed to fight my own battle. You did. He looked at her, proud and unflinching. But that wasn't a battle, Emily. That was cruelty. You never had to prove your worth to anyone. She turned her face to the window. Manhattan blurred past, shimmering towers, anonymous crowds, lives racing forward without pause. I didn't tell them about us because I wanted them to see me. Not your name, not your money, just me. Her voice cracked, but they never even looked. For a while, Logan said nothing. Then, almost quietly, do you see you? The words hit harder than the taunts ever had. Do you see you? She had spent months enduring, swallowing humiliation like poison she'd learned to live with, telling herself it was just temporary, that the work mattered more. that she could take it. But what if, in surviving them, she'd started believing them? What if she had stopped seeing herself? They rode in silence, her reflection in the tinted glass looking unfamiliar now. Not weak, but altered. Hardened in ways she hadn't noticed. Her silence hadn't been noble, it had been self-erasure. That night, the city lights twinkled far below the penthouse windows, but Emily didn't sleep. She sat on the balcony, wrapped in a blanket, knees pulled up, Logan's sweater draped over her shoulders. Inside, the fire crackled softly. Her laptop sat open beside her, client emails, unfinished reports. Work had always grounded her, but now it just looked hollow. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. No message. Then again, she hesitated, then answered. A woman's voice. Cool. Controlled. Emily Grant? Yes. My name is Celeste Rains. I was Logan's chief legal officer at Pierce Global for 4 years. We've met briefly at the merger gala in D.C. last year. Emily vaguely remembered the woman, sharp, poised, and unmistakably protective of Logan. What can I do for you? Celeste paused. I'd like to meet, privately. There are things you need to know about what happened at Apex, about Madison and Chase, and why they targeted you. Emily's breath caught. What are you talking about? Not over the phone. Tomorrow. 3 p.m., Cafe Moira in Midtown. Please come alone. Before Emily could ask another question, the call ended. She sat still for a long time, heart pounding. She hadn't told Logan about the message. Something in Celeste's voice, it wasn't threatening, but it wasn't friendly either. It was strategic. The next day, she arrived early. Cafe Moira was quiet, upscale. Celeste was already there, impeccable as ever in a slate gray coat, a folder resting on the table in front of her. She didn't waste time on small talk. Apex wasn't random, she said, sliding the folder toward Emily. It was deliberate. Emily flipped it open. Emails, transfer requests, notes from HR. She skimmed quickly, then froze. Madison Blake had requested to be placed on the floor where Emily worked. Chase had been moved from a different division. Ivy's portfolio had been padded to give her the excuse to collaborate with Emily's team. This doesn't make sense, Emily said slowly. Why? Celeste met her eyes. Because someone inside Pierce Global wanted to test you, to push you, to see what you'd do under pressure, without Logan's name protecting you. Emily stared, disbelief tightening around her chest. Who? Board factions, Celeste said simply. Logan's growing influence, his loyalty to you, makes him a threat to people who prefer puppets. They wanted to prove that you were dispensable, replaceable, a liability. Emily's throat dried. So they orchestrated my humiliation? Yes, but it got out of hand. Madison took it further than intended. Emily's hands clenched. So I was an experiment. Celeste looked away, just for a moment. You were a variable they couldn't control. The weight of it crashed down. Everything, the mockery, the sabotage, the breakdowns in trust had been manipulated. Not entirely by Madison's petty cruelty, but by people who saw her as a weakness in Logan's armor. And worst of all, she hadn't even seen it coming. Celeste stood. I told you because I believe you deserve to know. You're not a liability, Emily, but you are a threat to the people who underestimated you. Emily remained at the table long after Celeste left. Her heart thundered. Her mind raced. There had always been a quiet fury beneath her gentleness, a blade she'd kept sheathed out of principle. But now, for the first time, she wondered what it would feel like to unsheath it. Not to survive, but to fight back. If you found out your suffering was engineered to test your worth, would you walk away or burn the whole system down? In the next chapter, Emily stops playing by their rules and starts rewriting the game. Emily stood by the window of her apartment in Tribeca as morning light bled slowly across the skyline. Her coffee had gone cold in her hands. The city was waking up, rushing trains, honking cabs, people with purpose. But inside her, something deeper was stirring. Not purpose, not anger, clarity. She had spent the last 48 hours combing through the documents Celeste had given her. Emails, memos, internal notes marked confidential, names, dates, decisions. Her entire ordeal at Apex had been a controlled environment, a psychological crucible to test not only her resilience but her effect on Logan. She hadn't just been bullied. She had been targeted by powerful people, smart people, people who had wagered that Emily Grant would break quietly. But she hadn't broken. She had endured. And that meant they had failed. Logan didn't know everything yet. She hadn't told him about Celeste or the folder. He thought it was over, that they had won. But this wasn't victory. It was a stalemate. That night, she asked Logan to meet her on the rooftop. It was cold. The sky hung low with soft gray clouds, the wind biting through her coat. Logan stood beside the heater, watching her with cautious eyes. "You've been quiet," he said. "I found out why it happened," she said simply. "Why I was put in that office. Why Madison and the others were sent to work with me." His eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" "It was a test," she said, "from inside Pierce Global. A setup designed to provoke me, to measure my reactions, to see if your marriage to someone like me could be used against you. And when I didn't crack, they pushed harder." Logan stared at her, jaw tight. "Who?" "I don't know exactly," she said. "But it wasn't just them. Madison wasn't capable of orchestrating something this subtle. This was bigger." He looked away, hands clenched. "Why didn't you tell me this sooner?" "Because I needed to decide," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "if I was going to let this define me, or if I was going to define myself." Logan stepped closer. "Emily." "No," she whispered. "Let me finish. You've protected me since day one, even before I knew I needed it. But this fight isn't yours, Logan. It's mine." He watched her, breathing hard, torn between pride and fear. "So what do you want to do?" She reached into her coat and handed him a sealed envelope. "I'm leaving Pierce Global." He flinched. "What?" "I'm not walking away," she clarified. "I'm building something new. I've started an independent advisory firm, one that works with startups run by women, immigrants, anyone the system overlooks. I've secured my first round of funding." His mouth opened, then closed again. "Emily, I love you," she said, eyes shining. "But I can't keep being a symbol of your empathy. I need to be something on my own terms. I need people to respect me, not just your wife." He stepped toward her, resting his forehead against hers. "They do. They will." "I know," she whispered, "but I have to do this anyway." She left the rooftop first. Tears stung her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. Weeks passed. The media caught wind of the scandal at Apex. Thanks to a whistleblower, Celeste had discreetly connected with a journalist. Names were leaked, careers ruined. But Emily stayed silent. She didn't post a statement. She didn't do interviews. She just worked, quietly, steadily, building something honest. Her firm, Haven Analytics, grew fast. By spring, she had a waiting list of clients and 3 full-time analysts, all people who had once been passed over, talked down to, or told they didn't fit the culture. One rainy afternoon, she found herself back in Midtown, standing in front of the Apex building. It looked the same. Gleaming glass, the cold blue logo, a spinning door that had once been the portal to humiliation. She didn't go in. She just watched. And then she walked away. That evening, she returned to the apartment. Logan was in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, stirring something on the stove. She leaned against the doorway, watching him. It had taken weeks for them to find a new rhythm. He hadn't pushed her. He'd just been there, anchored, unshakable. And in time, she let herself lean again. He looked up, smiling. "Dinner in 10. She nodded, stepped into the kitchen, and slid her arms around his waist from behind. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For knowing when to fight for me, and when to let me fight for myself." He turned, cupping her face gently. "You never needed me to fight for you, Emily. You just needed someone to remind you you had the right." They stood there, wrapped in something quieter than victory. Not everything had been restored. Trust in the system? Gone. Innocence? Burned. But in its place, something fiercer had grown. Purpose. Identity. And love not as rescue, but as recognition. A week later, a letter arrived. No name, no signature. Just a note. You weren't supposed to win, but you did, and we're watching. Emily read it once, folded it carefully, and placed it in the drawer of her desk. She had no intention of hiding. What part of Emily's journey spoke to you the most, and why? Comment 100 if you love this story. Tell us where you're watching from. Share this video with a friend who needs to hear this. Thanks for watching Life Stories.